Lena Khalaf Tuffaha is a poet, essayist, and translator. She's the author of 3 books of poetry, Water and Salt, winner of 2018 Washington State Award for Poetry, and Her Sisters, which we're going to talk about today, and Something About Living, winner of 2002 African Prize for Poetry, forthcoming. A new book that we'd also like to learn about. In 2022, she curated the translation series poems from Palestine for the Word magazine. She's currently working on a translation of selected works by the late poet Zakaria. So welcome, Lena. Ahmad Almallah is a poet and an artist in residence in the Creative Writing Program at UPenn. His first book, Bitter English, was published in the Phoenix Poet series from Chicago University Press in 2019. Ahmed received the 2018 Edith Goldberg Howson Memorial Prize for Creative Writing, and his set of poems, Read Course, won the 2017 Blanche Holden Williams Fellowship. His poems have appeared in many publications, such as Michigan Quarterly Review, but many others. Today, we will discuss Ahmed's new book, Border Wisdom, published with Winter Editions. So, welcome everyone. We're going to start by kind of getting a taste of the books and hearing some poems. We'll do that again later on after we talk about the books, but let's start by hearing from these very exciting books.
Let me see it. Okay, close. Is that not see it? All right. So the book is Can and Her Sisters, and this is a poem after one of the sisters of Can, Hamza. Hamza gives the journalists a tour of their book. You will write about us, the remnants, remarkable. The moment suspends meaning and requires no nameplates. You've been here before, with cameras and questions, this time a better signal, a richer image. Of our severed and bloodstained stories are fashioned. On our bones, the breaking news cycle feeds. I know you, guests of the aftermath, come to speak on inevitability. What can you recite of the archive? How many times, while we wait, must we die? How far back will you look to discern if this moment is mean or variance? Who among us will deviate from our given value? You have arrived to survey, and our bodies are best used to express an average. Let the lives of us, the laissez-passés unfolded for inspection, lead the evening headlines. Let the pianist play a soundtrack of these days. None of this will draw blood. Behind the screen, none will drown for knowing. Let this gathering then leave us. Let evening fall on us, your monuments.
I have to say, it's such an honor. Okay, I will repeat because it's worth it. It's such an honor to read with Lena and one of my heroes. I feel very humbled sitting right next to her. So thank you so much for the poem. My first poem is this. Sorry. I'm kind of a clown figure. mother. And I think the first two books are really for my mother, and they were two difficult gifts from my mother. The first gift was bitter English, and it traced her struggle with Alzheimer's and the loss of her memory. And the second gift that she gave me is her passing, which was a very difficult gift, but she really gave me this book because of that. And the name Elegy, we didn't get to read this poem to other readers because there was no translation. So I would like to read maybe just the first section, or maybe the two sections. We'll see.
Could you project a bit more?
Could I project a bit more? Is this better? Maybe I should just hold it like that. So this is the name Elegy. Every moment is an image. Every sunrise is a flashback to the other side, where the dead never reach out to the living who obsess about connecting dots and symbols. My daughter gives me knives to celebrate the fancy fact that once upon a time, like a sad story, you existed and you loved to cut and puncture, carve and preserve. The blocks of time between being born and being rendered an aging body ready to receive the final blow, make up some life to celebrate, and then cut again. The only slice of air is the body, the language that you mastered to the tiniest twitch. What statement were you trying to make? God knows. Only grief will make the ones left behind decipher, and then the image might come alive because it is real and contains gaps like the real that is the hardest to imagine.
Ahmed, you already touched a little bit on the sort of why you wrote the book, but maybe you want to talk a bit more about that. Why you wrote this book? What are the main themes of this book?
Is this good, or should I just hold it? So after publishing my first book, I say I kind of struggled. I struggled to feel that I'm writing again. Not entirely for myself. I don't really believe in that idea. But to write something that is real to me. And I think once my mother passed away, first of all, I stopped writing in English altogether. And I went back to writing in English, in Arabic. And I wrote two poetic essays that actually were published in Al-Jadid, I think. Where were they published?
I'm the manager. العربي الجديد.
And I struggled, before that I struggled to write and feel that I'm writing not for the sake of publishing, And once I wrote these two Arabic texts, I felt that I'm getting back to, you know, the original impulse. Made me want to write in the first place. And then the first text that I felt was real enough was the elegy for my mother. And it was a long text, and I wrote a lot. It was a much longer poem. And then that really was the core of the book. Once that core was there, I was able to kind of attach the other pieces to it. And some of these other pieces were written also, some of them were written before Bitter English came out. But there were also some other texts that came out after writing the elegy. And at that point, I felt like, you know, I abandoned an old routine of writing every day. And I was writing kind of here and there, on a plane here, the one like waiting in an airport or in the Jisr. And yeah, it came together like that. And I liked the fact that it came together in these spurts, these kind of. It was more true, I think, and the text took place, although some of them in English, they took place outside of the United States. And that was beautiful. That was all what I wanted. Mm-hmm.
For Ken and her sisters, this book for me sort of enacts something that the great writer Toni Morrison teaches us, which is that if there's a book you need and it doesn't exist, you should write it. Paraphrasing for you. And I feel like, you know, there are wonderful books of poetry by Palestinians and by Arab writers, but I needed a book that specifically talked about the emotional labor that women do in times of war and under colonialism, and the specific culture-preserving and culture-making labor that, whether we choose it or not, is often ascribed to women. Because I don't feel that there was a book that really named that the way I wanted it to be named. It's odd, the book started with famous songs, which is a condition I continue to suffer from. And I was just thinking about, you know, the way they're a kind of a soundtrack for our lives. And in the era in which I grew up, that was a really turbulent time for Arabs and for Palestinians. Intifadas, multiple intifadas, the war in Lebanon, but all of those sort of events that surrounded my life or that were happening as I grew up overlapped with these love songs largely. I mean, yes, she has patriotic songs, but largely love songs. And, you know, the women in my life, the teachers, the mothers, the grandmothers sang, blended, you know, that phrase. And those love songs thread through a lot of our lives. And it felt like that was such a beautiful embodiment of one of the truths of our lives, that, you know, we're not just grief-stricken victims. We are people who are living unimaginable historical events, and we're just really deeply human and going about our lives. And so the other character in this book, Miss Sahar, the teacher who is remembered by her student, is singing Fayouz songs, and several of the poems in the book are in conversation with those love songs, and remake them and reimagine them. And I just also felt like kind of the most belligerent thing I could do was write the book that I wanted. Like, I imagined that there must be people like me. And that's a daring thing to imagine in an American context, because as we've discussed infinitely at this conference, you aren't meant to imagine that that's true. You're meant to imagine that you don't exist, and the things you need aren't really important, and you should just adjust to a different way of looking at your own history and your own identity. And, so I felt like writing this book and creating these personas or characters that talked about time and place and the way I experienced them was a really defiant act, and I was feeling kind of defiant, so that's where the book comes from.
Nice. Well, I did, you raised sort of the issue of women, and I do have, I felt that women in both of your works are an inspiration. They're kind of the center, preserving memory, survival. You're adding now love, which is extremely important for survival and for everyone. So do you want to add a little bit about that?
I mean, I could speak my mother endlessly. Not just because she was my mother, but because I really felt as someone growing. Thank you. I felt that she was really strong, and she was a really special individual. And her stubbornness about certain things were very admirable to me. And she, to me, was the figure that I aspired to be. It wasn't a father. So my mother, I felt, was a very admirable person, not just because she was a mother, or because she was my mother, but because she insisted on certain things being part of her life that made me really aspire to becoming her. And I always say that I really have a mother in me. And I believe in that. And I have my mother, for sure. Some of the things that she really cared about so much was the earth. She made sure to do things that I think now are trendy, but she made sure to compost. She made me dig a hole in the ground and actually help her in that. My mother was the world's best recycler. I told this to my students. She never believed in using plastic, all of these things. And when we used them, she was very, very angry with us. And then she would collect them and she would wash them so they can be reused again. She was very kind to animals, to cats. And very often when I walked with her, and this is something that is, part of our environment, she would see litter on the ground, and she would be hit with this sudden sadness, and it was always the same. It was unbelievable. It was something that, for me, was so special. And no matter what people told her about this, she just, she wouldn't listen. She was like, I'm gonna, if you bring me plastic, I'm gonna collect it and I'm gonna wash it and reuse it. And that's why people stopped bringing her plastic.
The question was about love.
About women. Women and the personal, but also the general in Palestine, where I feel like women are really an inspiration, both of your work.
Yeah, I think, I grew up largely in Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and so most of my teachers were Palestinian exiles. And their narrations of their villages and their cities, in addition to my family's stories, built my homeland around me. So, the texture of all their different accents introduced me to the experiences I couldn't have because I didn't get to grow up in Palestine. Their family histories and the way they brought us their traditions into the classroom. So beyond grammar lessons, they infused the world that we lived in with their memory and their lived experience and transmitted it to us and for an entire generation of various Palestinian exiles. That's how we experience the homeland. And I think that's a really powerful act of love as well, because it extends beyond caring for your individual family. It understands the depths of the communal responsibility to enliven and make real the homeland when we can't inhabit it.
And the daily resistance that we don't see or often kind of account for.
Also in a very harsh environment, living in the West Bank under occupation. My mother should showed this kind of unique kindness towards everybody around her. As I said, including, the street, including she would go and pick up the litter. She would go. So she had this kind of kindness toward the place around her and toward the animals, the cats. She would go to the butcher and she would actually ask the butcher to give her meat for the cats. She made sure that the portions for the cats are there. And not a lot of people thought that way in this very harsh environment. And I think that's really extraordinary.
The previous session, I saw here, we were talking about what is Palestinian literature and what you hear about, really, as people who suffer from colonialism. It's not only about Palestine, but you, and it's about everything. That's kind of what you're presenting. That's beautiful. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your this is not your first book, so sort of the transition. How are these two works related? Is there a transformation? Not in Palestine exactly, but what's happening with you in relation to writing about Palestine, being Palestinian?
I think for me, I had never written anything with a narrative arc before. The first book is more a collection of poems that are in conversation, but like a more traditional collection. And this idea of writing a character-driven book of poems was a little unusual. But I liked something that Khalaf was saying, I think, today in an earlier panel about the nonsense of genres and how those are invented boundaries, and that there's a kind of fluidity between genres. And so I felt like I could take that liberty to build a little bit of a narrative arc in this book. So that was different for me. And it is definitely a book about Palestine and about a refugee woman, but it's also a deeply Arab book. Like, it's a way to be Palestinian Arab. Sometimes I feel like in the United States we can be trapped in these limiting and narrowing conversations. Your Palestinianness gets addressed in a very small, closed context, and then maybe your Arabness shouldn't be talked about at all, because that's over, right? And your Muslimness is over here in this other box, and whatever. We were chopped up in weird ways, and I just wanted to inhabit like my full self. This is who I am, this is how I grew up, and that conversation of being Palestinian Arab, like proudly and unapologetically, not in a related to any American foreign policy context. Like, I just really wanted to do that for myself. And I found, since the book has come out, that there are other people who are like, yes, I want that too. And so, I hope it's a moment where Others are also just leaning into, it's important to speak about your life on your own terms. It seems like such a simple statement, but it's actually very hard to do in the environment that we live in, the culture that we live in, and it can be very small. It can be, about subverting language and making it work for you, or just insisting on using, all of your languages together in a way that feels authentic, or just privileging and introducing the characters of your life in their fullness. So those are some of the differences, I think, in this book.
I can't agree more. I have to agree with Lena. She really said it all. I think this is the struggle. This is the struggle, I think, for poets. There has to be an other. And many, unfortunately, of these poets sometimes cave into the pressure, and they start kind of recycling stereotypes of the culture about themselves. And I guess Lena and I are in agreement that this is a route we don't want to take. Yeah, we want our experience as Palestinians to be there, but on our own terms. And we want to express all that involves being a Palestinian. We can't completely, take that out of the picture. But we feel that if sometimes it is framed in a way where we're asked to just answer to that, then that's not really the formula that we want to follow. And I think both of us maybe, I guess the world of publishing struggle with that, because it's easier to publish if you play along with what the expectations are. And my experience with my previous publisher, Chicago, didn't go very well because, and I did write about that in an open letter to them, and about publishing in the United States, where I felt if you didn't really play a certain card as a Palestinian, then you're going to be pushed out. This book was, insisted on using Arabic. The insertion of the Arabic was actually a challenge, and the translation of the Arabic text in the book was a mistranslation, and it was kind of playing all these games to really fuck with the American reader, basically, and complicate the reading experience. They were not interested in that.
This really connects to my question about writing poetry as Palestinians, about Palestine in English, and what's sort of the challenges or maybe the positive thing, liberating things about it, and also the audience, because you kind of raise a little bit the American audience, what they want. So who do you see your audience as well? These are like maybe 3 questions.
Free people. That's what I hope my audience is. I love that. There's a great essay by poet and translator friend Fadi Juda that came out a couple years ago, I think called Palestine in English. I have to look it up now. I don't want to pull out my phone in the middle of the panel. George, is it called Palestine in English?
It's in the bar. The Palestinian poem might be wrote in Polish.
Yes.
Yes.
But if you want to deep dive into what it means to engage in English as a Palestinian, I recommend that as an excellent read. But the sort of short version, my take on it is, Palestine is a place, and it continues to be a place. We know that. It's materially real. We all actually are from there, so it's a real place. But it's also an idea. There are great thinkers who have suffered, whose communities have suffered immensely in this empire, who have a lot to teach us. And it's just important not to lose sight of that, because when you're in your own grief, you can just become narrow in your thinking. But that being said, the writing has to be alive and conscious, and you have to negotiate those challenges every time you sit down to write.
Yeah, I'm always agreeing with you.
No, right a little bit.
Yeah, so, and bye, goodbye. Hey, it's okay, I'm just giving people a hard time. So, who are my audience? I grew up in Palestine. I read Arabic and Arabic poetry, and I said this in the reading before. I still recite Arabic lines to myself to go to sleep, and I talk to someone in Arabic. But I also learned from my experience here that the English language has taken over a big part of me. And it would be disingenuous to, is disingenuous the right word? Disingenuous. I'm foreigner. It's like I'm looking at Buddha's face and like, what the fuck is disingenuous? So it has taken a big part of my life, and since I've been here since I was 18, and it didn't make any sense to me to just try to write in Arabic and ignore the experience. Especially, I think most of my writing in Arabic ended up imitations of meter and things that I knew well, but I didn't know what to do with. And then when my mother started losing her language and her memories, I discovered that language is a very fluid concept, and I felt that in writing some of the poems that I was writing in English, I was actually talking to her. And she wasn't going to understand these texts in Arabic or in English, but there was this kind of connection that is being built. And when she passed away, I even felt more, or felt strongly about this idea. I felt like I could talk to her in any language or any sound. And that's why I wouldn't dismiss, English as a way of communicating with my tradition. And that was an essential kind of discovery for me, where I didn't feel, still feel some guilt, but I didn't feel so guilty about writing in English. And I think my mother is one of the people that I write to all the time, Huda and Sama for the most part, and myself. And I think the rest is trivial to me. I don't care about what the others would think. I take a poem to it when I get it ready, and when she reads it, and I feel like there's this kind of excitement in her face. That's the only acknowledgement I want. And the same thing with Sama, really. I mean, I think the most important thing for me is that when I quit my tenure track at Middlebury College, my professor, Suzanne Satkevich, is here. She told me, don't do that. I told her, I have to do that. And the biggest reward, I think, was for me to have seen Sama grow with me as a poet and to see me as a poet. That was all the acknowledgement I really wanted. Now Sama thinks of me as a poet. If I get published, if I don't get published, that's irrelevant, I think. Yeah, sure.
Let's hear, before we open, because I think some of you want to ask questions, two of these, the first two were very powerful poems, so maybe two.
Yeah, sure. How about we
Okay, sounds good.
maybe I should so we were talking about my mother and the power of a mother figure, of a woman. And I really like to read this section. It's actually the end section of the elegy. When the sickness began to show its signs, in Vermont, of all places, in a coffee shop, you said you used to write poems. I asked you then, why didn't you give it up? My father made a joke, your love for him, he said. You looked at him and looked away. A baby in another corner smiling at you. You stood up to walk toward that smile. And as you approached, the baby jumped up and down in their mother's arms. You came closer. We were all dumbfounded. You stretched out your arms toward the woman's child. We couldn't believe it. The mother, confused, her baby all smiles, jumping to your embrace. You talked to the small face in Arabic, and your face was a thing of light. You were not my mother anymore, not my mother at all. I saw you. I saw you then, that person you could have become without us all.
Okay, I think we need a love song. Miss Sahan listens to Fayouz sing The Bee's Path. If you're going to scorch this heart and leave a desert in your absence, tell me now, and I'll follow the bees. If you're going to scorch this heart, I'll hem the horizon in solitude. Tell me now, and I'll follow the bees inside the anemones scarring the hillside. I'll hem the horizon in solitude, the light lengthening, breaking inside the anemones scarring the hillside. I'll spiral beneath the dome of the sky. The light lengthening, breaking this moment gathered around us as I spiral inside the dome of the sky. Spring is a ravishment, forever dying, dying, dying. This moment gathered around us is honey and wild greens and the promise of ravishment, forever dying, dying, dying. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Honey and wild greens and the promise of losing you in the desert and what happens next. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land? Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land or leave a desert in your absence? Are we just another love song, remembered or forgotten? Tell me now, and I'll follow the leaves.
Right, this is the opposite of the love song. This is called disputes. Number one. The chairs stacked, one by one, on top of the other, did not create an arc by themselves that made them seem as though leaping one out of the other, ahead of themselves. It is the thud when dropped after the stack which gave them the push. You might tell me, what does that have to do with anything? Our life and lives. And might point to you that silence has its merits, and that nature prefers it because it has no words, only sounds. It's not over, there's section number 2. 2. Patterns, the only act approaching meaning. There is nothing philosophical about them, because, however, or moreover, and the rest of human conjunctions are covers for the elemental failure, for having failed to observe and repeat in silence. So we've created dissonance and noise and the mechanics of producing them. And all in all, we've only managed to disturb the weave of the seasons.
So in the last poem, I referred to the desert and what happens next. This poem is entitled, What Happened Next. The timeline is teeming. Nakba unlocks the gates. From our house, my father carried the suitcase and my mother carried my youngest sister. She stopped only twice to nurse her and days later to bury her beneath the carob tree. Time opens the gate. Another sister was born in the first camp where we took refuge, and some parts of my mother too, though she buried her eyes on the road. The line repeats. The Nakba is teeming with locks. They became what they sought and were never granted. My father dissolved, and my mother fed the mourning doves. She stopped only once to grieve him, then days later, she walked us past the snipers. Nakba repeats itself. My love grew up in the second camp where we waited. This was the era in which we fought to return. Let the team. My love was sent out to sea, and the others, what can I tell you? The earth of the camp was too thin to cover their corpses. We repeat. It always looks the same. Lines of us walking carrying smaller parcels, structures folding in on themselves. Repetition is a nakba. An accord rears its head when we meet the necessary measure of rubble. And they took the rest of the men in trucks through the gates. My love has no address to reach us. Nakba petitions time. My mother buried, and before her, my sister. Only once, though, if the first burial suffice.
We're actually we're actually out of time. It's 6:22. We can do one more if people want to stay. If we don't have to leave, let's go more.
I feel this is also relevant to the discussion. This is called regarding time. Nights whisper, and the breath is heaven. I just love reading poetry, especially my own. Okay, regarding times. Nights whisper, and the breath is heavy, and the light, there's always light. I can tell the hours by darkness moving above the sky, clouds, the possible, by darkness moving above the sky, clouds, the possible. Wind minding its business, knocking things over, hearing it all out of vision, I pull the dark in. What is it that makes, and where is it that matters in the how? This corner of the street contains the world, the sane, the insane, the moving, the still. And we thought the world can keep on moving. And we have gone out of ways to make it all work. Is it true, this truth, that can't and won't but will? At last the empty space demands, the people holding signs, the slogans and the march. And how does it feel to be fought for, to be subject of the time? Everyone speaking in your name, against your name. And to see the sky like no other, the strokes of light, however they are, coming light by light, orange clouds above view, it's all new. The humming plane, the church as cover, and the sign, black lives, concrete, bricks, brown and red, in the morning light, the slogan on the wall, and the cold winter wind, brushing stone.
No. Oh, no. Good, thank you. Yes, thank you.
If there's no questions, we'll do short poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, short poem on the way out. Thank you for being such a lovely audience. I should mention, the cover of this book is by a magnificent Palestinian painter, artist, which is like the honor of my life. So, yeah, it's important to say.
I'm sure the poems answer all the questions.
Okay, Can and her sisters consider the past. Once upon the Can they gathered, Can and all the verbs that revel in negation. What did not happen to us, what had not taken place, these were the subjects they raised. Can and her sisters were born for lamentation, for dividing time and denying its work. Ms. Sahar taught us about this family in Arabic class, the somber sisters of story, and how they tell by taking time away. Once upon Makan, they walked through the market, and the woman selling grape leaves called to them from the ground where she sat, and the girl making tea called to them from the window of her house, and the man selling sesame loaves called to them from his wooden cart, Makan, this our homeland upon old time. Makan, an end to this story. Once upon Jerusalem, the boy gathering stones called out to them, and a poem on this wall, but they keep trying to erase it. I hear the words calling out to me. If I do not burn, and you do not burn, then who will light the way?
I have one question and then we'll leave.
I just wanted to ask, I've been listening to these poems, I can feel my sensibility being rearranged as a reader of the world around me. I was wondering, you could both speak to the way that your poems are making an intervention in either literature, poetry written in English, or in the English language, or into the literary system of poetry written in English. So what is the transformation? How do you bring that transformation that you're achieving with your poems?
I mean, wow, that's heavy. And I want to reread them and make sure they rise to what you've so eloquently just described. It's just really, at a very base level, it's truth-telling. Like not to oversimplify it, but the goal every day is to sit down and tell the truth. The tool happens to be poetry in our cases. There are other tools. So I think it's an introduction of Palestinian truth into the narrative. And I hope I hope very, very humbly these poems are in conversation with the great tradition of truth tellers and revolutionary poets who, have had to do that work for their own histories.
I probably don't know how to answer this question. I think for me, writing poems is a form of serious play with the language. I personally do not consider my poems any kind of intervention or any kind of revolutionary statement. If you really want to engage in a revolution, I think you have to be an activist and you have to forget about poems. And that's the truth. I mean, revolutionary, the Sam Kinafani, they wrote, but they believed in real revolution and real struggle and in taking action. And that's a real intervention. Am I going to kid myself and say that, this is going to free Palestine? No. We have other work to do to free Palestine and to, get rid of the occupation and do all of these things. And that's a different matter. That's a different intervention. And that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
There's one more question.
This language aside and to express all my feelings. I issues like art and poetry, and they often seem to change the world. Change the world not only for Palestinians, but for everyone and from all kinds of domination. I think it's very, very important. Art and poetry and painting and music are a very, very important influence in what society.
I mean, I hope so, but these are the things that are digestible by, the bourgeoisie and the middle class, and they are, at the end of the day, not really the tools to reach your political goals. I don't kid myself and say that if I write a book of poems that I'm a revolutionary. I think this idea that has been now adopted by many, many poets is a delusion. And it's a way of neutralizing political action. And let's stop this chant. Write your poems, but don't claim that your poems are like freeing the world, because that's bullshit.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Lena and Ahmed. Really great